This is a learning theater, and every time we stretch ourselves, we know we're going to learn things in the process. So that was very true of the turntable.
You can do all the strategizing and theorizing you want. Ultimately, when it comes right down to it, it has to turn.
It's fun to be able to delve sort of into something brand new for us, and truly, it's magic.
A lot of places that build a turntable usually have 3 or 4 weeks to work with it, to iron out all the kinks and everything like that. We did that on the fly in less than a week.
I got starlight, I got sweet dreams, I got my gal, who could ask for anything more, who could ask for anything
It was really our crew. Everyone really performed well under pressure. Everybody had active listening going on.
Here, this has not been done to this scale. This has not been done to this scale at a lot of regional theaters. The big thing with us is keeping a low profile. So we wanted it to be nice and shallow so it didn't affect too much of the view. Most stages go up to 8 inches when they do it. We had to try to keep it in 4.5. So that 4.5 with the 23-foot diameter, since that was so restrictive, it was identifying the caster. So the caster is what the whole turntable rolls on top of. So finding that caster, which is the smallest profile that we can get, then building up from there.
Honestly, it was all measurements, and finding that center point. There was a chance we would be spinning off center. And of course we had to make minor adjustments because there were maybe a 16th off and we'd have to adjust slightly. But honestly, we owe it all to the engineering. The engineering for this was absolutely amazing.
Immediately we knew we'd have a pretty substantial engineering challenge on our hands. Not only would we have to acquire the motor and the software that drives the motor, but we would have to build a false deck to house the turntable itself. And this required a great deal of planning.
All the way back in January when we decided we were going to need a turntable for the show, I was starting to engineer and plan things out for it.
Yeah, so we actually sat down and we talked about it for a few minutes, and he drew something on his desk, and then from there on it was kind of see what I can come up with. There were a lot of different versions that I went through to get it to where it was. And this was kind of a general overview of positioning of roller guides, as well as just giving the carpenter and the people in charge of installing just an idea of what's going on. And then this is a detailed view of where we're putting sprockets, which sprockets we're using, with the front and the side view, and then which way the chain will be running. The biggest learning experience that I had working on with the turntable with Jeremy was just how much planning and how much precautions we need to take when it's in terms of safety and in terms of automation on stage for live theater.
It was really fascinating to watch in the rehearsal room, where we did not have a turntable, how people would simulate what was going to happen and try to imagine what it was going to be like.
I got music, I got my man who could ask for anything more. I got daisies in green.
Luckily, Jeffrey, the director, had a very clear vision of how a turntable would work. So we went into rehearsal knowing exactly what the cues would be, how far it would turn, how long it would last. Every transition or every choreographed movement that the turntable had in rehearsal, we practiced with the people just moving as they would normally. It has certainly made it easier having an actual revolving piece, but we were able to rehearse it pretty well downstairs.
Stage management ended up being the turntable quite a lot, so it was, well, we won't do this in real life when there's a turntable, but for now, we're gonna spin the piano 360 degrees all the way around. There were also several more spikes than there would have been. The spikes are the marks on the ground to show where scenery goes. And we had several things, like the counters, for example. We have 2 spikes for them in the rehearsal hall because they shift during the song.
Then when we moved on stage, they were extremely adept at being able to calibrate how they walked on the periphery of it when they stepped onto it. And the crew had done a really excellent job of making sure that the wedge between the end of the turntable and then back to the regular solid stage was as minimal as could possibly be. So there was no great bump they had to step over. They didn't really have to think about it. They just had to realize that it was like a moving sidewalk at the airport. But when you saw the finished performance, you didn't really sense any trepidation from anyone. And it gave us magical effects. It was pretty fantastic.
This is my show control here. It allows me to load cues, and it has the execute button. It also has a hold button, and it has our emergency stop. If for any reason safety was in question, the emergency stop is there to bring everything to a halt. And just as a last precaution, I have a video feed, so I can see what's going on stage, and if for some reason I feel I need to stop movement on the turntable, or that it's not safe to execute a movement on the turntable.
How can words express your divine appeal? You could never.
Lights 266. Go. Tab 300. Go. Lights 267, go. Standby automation 640. Tab 305, go.
Wonderful, marvelous, she should care for me.
After the show is over, this becomes a stock item for Music Theater Wichita. So this is something that we can pull out again, use for other shows, and we're going to make refinements, make it even better for ourselves to put in and out, things that you'll learn in that process. So it'll have a life beyond just this one show.
When you come to see a show at Music Theater Wichita, you see 10% of the process that goes into it. I mean, you see the show get executed, and it's beautiful by that time. We've had a lot of time to work on it, but I just want to draw attention to the folks who work diligently backstage, not just in this case in technical direction and in carpentry, but the staff that works in all the departments backstage. We're an organization that trains young technicians. We hire in excess of 70 of them each year. I just want to applaud them for all the hard work they do. They make these shows possible.
That she should care